Want to talk about the songs a little bit. Let's go to the first single. Some Guys Have All the Love, 1991. It's a top 10 hit for you, and you've broken through now. I'm guessing that was a pretty good time for Little Texas.
Well, it certainly was. And, what was interesting is we had basically a small deal on Warner Brothers. It was basically a production deal where they would pay, every 6 months we would go in and cut 4 or 5 songs, and then we would take it to the president, and he would, yay or nay it. And so about the third time around, basically as a favor, because we were, once again, we didn't look the part. We were certainly so young. I mean, 20, 21 years old. I think the oldest member in the band at that time was maybe 23. And so just as a favor to our producer, he said, hey, let's release Some Guys. And so Some Guys came out. It went top 5, and they kind of looked around and said, where's your album? And we're like, well, we don't have an album. And what's interesting is we had 3 singles out before our First Time for Everything CD actually came out. And Some Guys peaked in December, early December of like 91. And so it's interesting at the album sales that we missed, but fortunately it ended up selling about 750,000 copies. So it did okay in spite of a late release.
Yeah. And then the second release was First Time for Everything. And that, I think that is, I don't know if it's my favorite song of yours, because you have a few that I really, really like, but it's up there. It's got to be top 3 for me as far as favorite Little Texas songs. Where does it rank for you?
Something I love playing that song every night. It gets a great response. People sing along to it. What's interesting is now that we're in our third decade as a band, and so not only are we seeing our original fans and then their kids, but we're seeing their the grandkids of our original fans, and it's fun to see a young person or a teenager sing the lyrics to those songs that came out in the 90s. So it's very gratifying.
And for a band that, really likes to kind of pick it up and rock it a little bit, you can really slow it down well with songs like that one and songs like What Might Have Been, too.
Absolutely. The cool thing about What Might Have Been is not only was it a number 1 country hit, it was a top 10 pop hit as well. And, we have a couple of St. Louis was on it, Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, Kansas. There was a lot of stations, a lot of pop stations that picked that song up and made it a pop hit as well.
I guess I was 7 years old when God Bless Texas came out, and I just loved that song as a kid. And I think for me, it was my first taste of that Texas mystique, that everything's bigger in Texas type thing. A young kid here in Southeast Missouri growing up, and I'm thinking, man, I want to go to Texas. Surely you knew that was going to be a big hit in the Lone Star State. Did you know it was going to take off nationally, though, the way it did?
Something, I don't think we thought a lot about what things were going to do. We were in the, but back in the 90s, it was a single every 13 weeks. That's how, you think about today's country music or the genre, and artists are having a single, especially new artists, that it will take a year or maybe even longer to, peak on the charts. And for us, it was, I tell people in a year and a half, we had 7 singles, and then God Bless Texas came out. And so the momentum of those 7 singles, we were just kind of caught up in it. An interesting story is the day that we did the video for God Bless Texas. We filmed it at the Dallas Ranch, and we came back to the hotel, and someone from Warner Brothers, a rep from Warner Brothers, was there and informed us that What Might Have Been had gone number 1. So it was a good day.
Is it safe to say that God Bless Texas is your signature song as a band?
Well, that's the one that keeps the lights on. It definitely does the trick, and I think we would certainly, that's a song that we have to do every night, and it's a song that we want to do every night.
And I think I read you close out the show with it a lot of times. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's always the last song, and of course we'll get up and do an encore too, but yeah, that's the big finale.
You can make an argument that My Love is your biggest hit. It's another number 1 for you. What do you remember about how that song came together, and then the overwhelming response that you got from it.
Well, what's cool about My Love is, I think it's our only multiple number one song. The fun thing about it is we filmed the video in Grand Cayman, and through that, we still have friends. We still go back every other year to a place called Sunset House. So not only do we have the memories and the history of My Love and the video, but we also have the friendship of a lot of folks from Grand Cayman.
Very cool. And a great song to slow it down, romance it up a little bit. But if you want to speed it up and get a little hyped, just put on Kick a Little because that one will get the blood flowing a little bit. And when I think Little Texas, I think that song or God Bless Texas. So
absolutely, that's another fun one to play, and my kick drum is featured prominently in that one.
Yeah. And then I guess the last one I wanted to talk about was Amy's Back in Austin. The reason I didn't say First Time for Everything or what might have been was my favorite is because I think Amy's Back in Austin might be my favorite song of yours. The title is enough for, like, you hear the title and you're like, that's going to be a good song,
Well, I know that we are responsible for keeping the La Zona Rosa Cafe open several years after it should have closed. And, that's once again, it's hard to say what your favorite song is to play every night, but I know that just the feel of that song, and it's always second or third song in our set, and it just kind of sets the mood for what's going to happen the rest of the night. So it's a fun song to play.
And almost forgot I wanted to mention Life Goes On because it was your last top 5 single, but also it was one of the songs that you wrote for the band. That would have been around 95.
It was, yeah. And I had the pleasure of writing that with two of my good songwriting buddies. And, once again, it's a fun song to play in concert.
What were you thinking when you wrote it? Like, what inspired that song?
It's one of those songs. They just kind of come out in the middle of the air. I know that when I wrote it, I was celebrating my first year anniversary, and I just celebrated and this is kind of crazy. Yesterday was my 26th wedding anniversary.
Oh, congratulations!
And yeah, man. And so that morning, I got up and went into town. We wrote the song. We did a small little demo of it, and it sounded more like a Mellencamp song. I wish I could dig up the original demo of us playing it. And then we took it in the studio, and it became what it became. And once again, another fun song to play.
You've mentioned a lot of your influences and some other artists that are around about the time that you were getting popular. You talked about Exile, who I've actually had on the show.
Great guys.
Yes, they're awesome, and their music was featured prominently that night. Who else from your time period of coming up there in that early to mid '90s frame did you really enjoy listening to, Del?
Well, of course, we had the privilege and the pleasure to tour with Clint Black. We had the same publisher back in the early days as Clint, and so we did about 125 dates with Clint in 92, 93 time period, and so he was always very gracious to us. Always loved hanging out with Clint and his guys. Of course, our next tour was with Travis Tritt and Trisha Yearwood. I'm sorry, and once again, just a ball playing with those guys. So, and we still get to see them from time to time, and it's we talk about old memories and crazy road stories and all that good stuff. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I like to ask questions like that because it gets you talking about all my other favorites from that time, and just brings back good memories. That's all I can say. So, Del, what's next for Little Texas? I think you'll be getting back on the road here again pretty soon, won't you?
Something we're celebrating. We're in our 31st year. At the end of last year, we started recording. We have 16 new tracks. We've been working on those, so we'll have a new project coming out soon. We recorded about 8 of the classic, hits, and then 8 new tracks, new songs. So we're looking forward to getting that finally finished up and getting it out. It's like we discussed earlier, it's a crazy year, crazy time. Our schedule is it's intact, but a lot of dates are getting moved, or maybe getting moved to the fall, or possibly to next year. So it's kind of up in the air, but once again, we're working enough and out there having fun. I get to climb on a bus here in a few days and head back out. So we're looking forward to it.
We got tons of Little Texas fans in our area, Southeast Missouri, Southern Illinois, Western Kentucky, you name it. So before I let you go, I wanted to give you a chance to say anything you wanted to those fans who are listening to us on K103 tonight.
Hey, bring us back to the area. We love Missouri and can't wait to get there. I know back in the early days we did a show in the Cape with the Oak Ridge Boys, and it was great. They came in our our dressing room, and one of them said, and it was obviously it was a bunch of young girls. It was our crowd, and Joe Bonzel, he was like, we just want you to know, all those young girls screaming for you guys, their mothers used to scream for us that way. So I've never, and I ended up being Joe's neighbor. I lived next door to Joe for a good bit. So it was, and he's one of the funniest human beings in the world. So I have never forgotten that quote from him.
That is great. Hey, Dale, I sure appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on our show, and we wish you good luck with everything moving forward.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for keeping us alive, and we appreciate you guys continuing to play Little Texas. And Glenn, we wish you all the best.